I'm just going to make that announcement in Spanish, que la transmisión en vivo no va a tener la traducción al español, que se va a grabar una traducción mientras los candidatos estén hablando y luego se va a poner en la página. Entonces, para los que prefieren escuchar en español, favor de mirar en un ratito el sitio web y luego va a haber una grabación en español. Si tenemos a gente que está aquí presente actualmente con nosotros que quisieran escuchar en español, yo les puedo dar un par de audífonos y un pequeño aparato. Solo levanten la mano y se los entrego. ¿Nadie? Bien.
Thank you so much. Madam Timekeeper, would you please wave your hand? Candidates, that's the timekeeper there. Each candidate would have an opening statement, 2 minutes each. There will be at least 10 questions, more as time permits. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question. The opposing candidate will have 2 minutes to answer if they so desire. Each will have 1 minute to rebut the other's statement. We will alternate who responds first to the question so no one can claim an advantage or disadvantage. At the end, Mr. Henry Perez will have 4 minutes for his closing statement. At the end, Mayor Corey Mason will have 4 minutes for his closing statements. Gentlemen, do you understand the forum rules? Let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. Mayor Mason, 2 minutes, your opening statement, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Can people hear me okay? Great. Good evening, everyone. I am Mayor Corey Mason, and I am happy to be here with all of you tonight for our mayoral forum before the April 4th general election. I want to thank the organizers of this event to get adults the opportunity to get a high school diploma, to help people become first-time home buyers, and the work that we really need to do to make sure that we have safe and healthy communities. Not as though we haven't had challenges, however. Like the rest of the country, we've seen a rise in gun violence, and that is why when we saw that happening last year, the city worked quickly with the county and the school district to form the Violent Crime Reduction Initiative, where we do the work that we need to do to come together to hold violent criminals accountable, but to also do the work of preventing crime before it happens. So that we're working with other agencies, nonprofits, and community groups to reach out to the community to prevent crime before it happens. There's a lot of great opportunities that we have before us, challenges like we're seeing in other parts of the country as well. I know that we just started on some of these things, but we've made so much progress. I can't wait to do another term. We've only just begun. I can't wait to help move Racine forward and build a stronger Racine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Henry Perez, your opening statement, sir.
Thank you, Doctor. My name is Henry Perez. I've been an alderman in the city of Racine for 10 years, so I have participated in very much of everything the mayor has just stated that we're doing, actually longer. I'm running for mayor in the city of Racine because I see that we are not heading in the right direction. Right now, our crime is the #1 in the area. We're losing police officers. We've gained some public housing, some market rate housing, of which both areas already have been hit by our drug task force. Weapons and guns and drugs have been taken from them. We are really in a dark place right now in our city. I think with the proper leadership and the understanding that we need to make Racine a place where people want to work, thrive, live, play, we can take all those things that we've done in the past and improve them to the point that businesses want to come back to town. We can no longer be known as a little Detroit, as was being said. When I have friends and neighbors that are coming to Racine and they're telling me, Henry, I don't really want to go, but I'm coming for an event. It's another thing. We don't even have events anymore downtown. Why? Because of the issues with Festival Hall, the process we have right now. There are no events scheduled this summer. That's how bad it's gotten. People do not want to come to town. I have friends from all members of the community who tell me, Henry, I'm afraid. I'm afraid to be in the city. We need to do something about this. I'm afraid to leave my house. I can make a difference there. I'm a retired Miami police sergeant. I have numerous experience leading, managing budgets and everything else. And I think that I can do a better job of representing you because of my tenure of 10 years and my leadership that I've shown in the past. And I appreciate you all being here because the process is amazing that we can do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perez, sir. Mr. Perez, since Mayor Mason gave his opening statement first, I will start with you. And I want to start with both of you gentlemen's closing statements. Mr. Perez, you mentioned crime in your opening statement. Do you have a plan to address the crime problem in Racine? Please give specifics, sir.
Yes, sir. I do have a plan. Right now, the police officers are not allowed to respond to anything except in-progress calls or calls where there are injuries, like a car crash. And that's done on purpose. And it's not because of the staffing. Our staffing is low. They've left because of the lack of respect from the administration, the lack of benefits moving forward, and we're no longer even the pride of the departments that are locally. I plan on letting the police department go back to doing police work. I talked to one of the people Tuesday that said, Henry, we can respond to all the calls, but our curtailment plan that has been put in place does not let us respond to those crimes. You call dispatch, and right now they tell you, no, go online. No, we don't respond to that, and fill that out. That can't happen in a city as big as ours. We're the biggest city. We have 77,000 people in this county, and we need to make sure that the process is there. So I'm going to let the cops be the cops. I'm going to permit them to do police work. I'm going to make sure that they're supported. Both the police and fire are supported by the administration. We're going to work on how we're going to get them to stay here, for example, giving them opportunities to share what the needs really are, and then address them immediately if we can. Thank you.
Mayor Mason, you mentioned crime in your opening statement, sir. Do you have a plan to address the crime problem in Racine? Please give specifics, sir.
We have a plan that's in action right now. So we do have the Violent Crime Reduction Initiative that, again, last summer we formed with the county and the school district. We have made hundreds of arrests of people who've done violent crimes, gun crimes and specifically. We've gotten violent and illegal guns off the streets, and people are being prosecuted. But that's only part of the picture. You have to not only solve the crimes that are there, but you have to invest in resources that prevent crimes from happening in the first place. So that means working with the school district and the county collaboratively to figure out what the issues are, neighbor by neighborhood, by investing in nonprofits that are working with young people to root out the root causes of these problems before they even get started. It is not an either-or strategy. It is a both and all the above approach where we have to do that work. It also means working with legislators at the national level and the state level to do something serious about illegal guns off the street. We've got to close these loopholes that let far too many guns on the street for people who shouldn't have them, particularly minors and felons. So if we don't, if we're serious about doing that, we have to do it. But the other thing that we've had to do is bring more resources to public safety. That's why we had the governor down here last week to talk about bringing state resources, $12 million into the governor's plan to help fund public safety like police. But I've also done additional work to try to bring additional resources to the police department. This year's budget funded 6 additional officers. My opponent voted against that budget. I proposed a referendum to add 11 officers to the department. My opponent voted no on that. So I will say, when it comes to public safety, actions speak louder than words. If you want to see the work that needs to be done to create safe and healthy neighborhoods, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of collaboration, and it's not just rhetoric. You have to walk the walk, and you have to talk the talk. You have to show and not just tell people what it is that you're going to do to create safe and healthy neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Mason. Mayor Mason, since this question went to Alderman Perez first, you have 1 minute to offer rebuttal to his statement if you so choose, sir.
In addition to the statement that I just made?
Yes, sir. If you want to offer rebuttal to what he stated.
I think I responded in terms of what my plan is moving forward and the efforts that we need to make to actually fund the police and get the resources here to be able to do that.
Thank you, sir. Same thing for you, Alderman Perez. If you so choose, you have 1 minute to rebut what Mayor Mason stated.
Mayor Mason has spoken the truth. I did oppose those things because I know the way the budget works. You may not know this. We are down 30 officers, 11 more. It's just going to create, 31 positions that at the end of the year would not be filled. We have 7 officers that we can put into the police academy at the time. What happens to that money in the budget at the end of the day? It goes into the general fund. It doesn't get applied to police. In the last debate, he said, you failed us by not voting in the referendum to pass it. Well, you know what? I'm glad we did, because that money would have just gone somewhere else and it would have been a misuse of your precious money that you worked very hard for. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Perez. Gentlemen, the infant mortality rate in the state of Wisconsin is atrocious. In certain areas of this state, the infant mortality rate, especially amongst African Americans or minority babies in general, are worse than some third world nations. That's atrocious. Mayor Mason, do you have a plan to reduce the infant mortality rate in the city of Racine, sir? Please give specifics.
Sure. I just want to clarify one thing that my opponent just said before I move on to our work on infant mortality. So just to be clear, when there are positions that are down, we still fill those shifts with overtime. There's not magic money sitting somewhere. We are funding our police. We are filling those shifts. Anybody who tells you that there's a quick and easy answer to get out of this is misleading you. Anybody who tells you that the referendum didn't specifically create positions within the police department, I would encourage people to go read it, because it did create specific positions within the police department to add positions for public safety. Now, as it comes to infant mortality—
Mr. Mayor, just before you answer that question, sir, for the sake of fairness, and in order to be fair in the process of this forum, once we give you an opportunity to offer that rebuttal, you can't come back and do it later. So let's be fair overall, not only to yourself, but Mr. Perez as well. I want to establish those ground rules, and I want to stick with those ground rules. Are we in agreement with that, both gentlemen? Sir?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Please address the infant mortality rate, sir.
When I started in the legislature, the infant mortality rate for African Americans in the city of Racine was almost 3%, almost 30 deaths per 1,000. That's, at the time, would have had an infant mortality rate between Nicaragua and Kazakhstan. One of the first initiatives that I did was to actually get funding to our public health department to begin to do home visitation to work with pregnant and new mothers to do prenatal care and neonatal care to make sure that they were getting the resources they need. Since that time, part of the reason it is so important to establish a health clinic, where we in the city of Racine are the largest city in the Midwest without a federally funded health clinic, is to get those kind of services to people living in our community who are at risk for serving infant mortality. There is no reason why in the richest country in the world we should be in a place where children don't live to see their first birthday. We believe in the value of making sure that every kid can succeed. The very least that we can do is make sure that moms-to-be and new moms have the resources they need so that they and their children can live to see their first birthday and thrive beyond. That takes real investment in things like health resources where people can get the mental health care, the medical health care, and the dental health care they need. We're the biggest city in the Midwest not to have one, and as we move forward, we're going to resolve that problem, and we're going to build a health clinic right next to Julian Thomas School.
Alderman Perez, same question, sir. Do you have a plan to reduce infant mortality rate in the city of Racine, sir?
The plan is this. I also voted for the health clinic, and I voted for it because it is essential to our community. We need a place where everyone can come to get the medical care they need if they can't afford it. But we also have to do parental training, and we have to do parental visiting, because with the current use of drugs in our community, the current use of alcohol and tobacco, it becomes difficult for many of our community members to separate what they're doing with the fact that they're having a baby. And so let me repeat that, we will put programs in place that will do training for parents so that the outcome of having a baby becomes a much stronger event than is currently happening.
Both gentlemen mentioned prenatal care, and since this question went to the mayor first, Mr. Perez, would you like to have a 1-minute rebuttal to his comment, sir?
No, he's absolutely right. What we've done in creating that health clinic is present resources to our community that are needed, and I agree with that 100%, and I voted for it as well.
Same thing to you, Mr. Mayor. Would you like to offer a rebuttal to his comment, sir?
I mean, I think we need to have a holistic approach, right? So it's making sure that we have medical facilities in the community, but it's also making sure we continue that home-based prenatal care where you're meeting young families where they are. And so we want to create medical facilities that are available for people to come to, but if that's not working, it's also important to go to families where they are, visiting them at home or community centers or places that they feel safe. It really takes a holistic approach, and it needs to be driven by evidence-based practices that public health officials tell us work. It takes real time and effort to do this, but it is worth doing, and we need to do everything that we can to make sure that our infant mortality rates are not at a third world status. That is unacceptable, and as we continue on with Mayor, we will have those healthcare resources in place to give families and children the resources they need.
Both of you gentlemen are saying basically the same thing, prenatal care, home visit. Who is going to be doing these home visits? Mr. Perez, since he responded last, I'll let you answer that question. And then same thing to you, Mr. Mayor.
Right now, our fire department is responding to visits with their time. They have a huge number of visits per day that they go visit people who are in need so they don't have to come back to the hospital. But we also need to and will create teams that go out and train the people that are pregnant, that need the help, so that they can recognize what that they're doing actually hurts their chances of having a good pregnancy. We will create a team that will address the house. We will address the bigger issue, which is poverty in our community as well. That has to do with housing, has to do with mental health. And he said it has to be a holistic approach. Absolutely holistic approach. We have to invest in mental health counseling, and that's been one of the strong points of my campaign for a long time. I've been saying it for years.
Mayor Mason.
So the phrase that the medical professionals use in this is, if you want to have success with that kind of prenatal home visitation, they suggest providing what's called culturally competent care, right? And the idea is to pair a medical professional up, social worker or a community organizer that reflects the diversity of the community that we're trying to serve. Because if you can't establish a relationship or build trust with the community, best intentions of the world might not be as successful as they would otherwise be. So it's important to draw from the trust and resources that exist within the communities that we're trying to serve, so that it's services that are being provided with the community and not just to the community.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you with your specifics. The goal and objective tonight is to give the citizens of Racine as much information as possible, so when they go in the booth, they can make an intelligent decision in terms of who is going to run this city for the next 4 years. Mr. Perez, the next question is yours, since Mayor Mason had the last question. How do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our city, sir?
I've said this all along. I will have open hours for people to actually have access to the mayor's office, which they don't right now. I will also provide an opportunity for liaisons who will represent all the different subsections of our community, so that I can hear, if I'm not available, what is going on. I will also make sure that I include, what? Oh, I thought something was said. Oh, I'm sorry. I will also include appointments to committees that represent all the base of our system, all the Hispanics, all the African Americans, all the groups that want to come out here. Here's the issue, guys. We talk about diversity, okay? But appointing one person to every department is not diversity, okay? You have to think about that. If you're qualified and you're diverse, that's awesome. We need you to become part of the solution. Having an open door policy also brings to us solutions that we may not think of. And right now we have a system that's called the queue. And in this queue, when I propose stuff to the queue, if the chairman of the committee doesn't want to address it, it dies in the queue. Our residents need to have the opportunity to be heard, and that's not happening now. And I'm going to change that.
Thank you, Mr. Alderman Perez. Same question, Mr. Mayor. How do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our city?
So 5 years ago, one of the questions I was often asked when running for mayor is, what was I going to do to make sure the force and our boards, committees, and commissions more accurately reflected the diversity of the community that they serve? And I'm thrilled to tell you that our and commissions have more than doubled the amount of minority representation, and now for the first time, majority of the people appointed to those boards are women, slightly more than men. When I started, it was not a very diverse group of people. In addition, we've seen substantial increases in the number of people working for the city that better reflect the diversity of the community that it serves. That takes real intentionality to create a workforce of applicants who are qualified to be able to do that work. We've invested in a youth employment program over the summer to help create a pipeline of local residents that reflect our diversity to get opportunities to intern into those positions. And I'm pleased to say that already some of those people have been hired on by city departments. I'm thrilled with that work that we've been able to do to meet that commitment, to make sure that the people that are making decisions around the city actually reflect our diversity. Now, beyond that, during COVID, it was very hard to have outreach. After COVID ended, we did several bounce back events at our community centers and at Festival Hall, where we bring every city department together along with area nonprofits to bring resources. And those were opportunities for people not only to interact with me as the mayor, but ask departments of the parks director or other city departments. It was very successful, and I think it's something that we're going to continue to do on a semi-annual basis to open up as many of the city departments to be able to do that. There's a variety of ways that you're yourself accessible, but if you want to have an accessible city, it needs to include the mayor, but it also needs to include all of our departments. I'm proud of the work that we've done to, for the first time, have an outreach specialist who's bilingual, who can go out to the community and hear first from what their concerns are, but also communicate to the city residents what programs we have in place to help them get an adult high school education or become first-time home buyers or do the work that we need to do to make sure people can get into the middle class. That takes intentionality and communication with our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Mason. Since this question went to Alderman Perez first, would you like to offer a 1 minute to his statement?
26% of our community is Hispanic, 20% is Hispanic.
Just a minute.
I'm sorry.
No rebuttal?
No, I mean, I don't know if you want to, it feels like that's backwards. If he wants to say something, and then if I could have a minute to respond to that, but I don't have a rebuttal to what I just said.
Got you. I just wanted to keep the flow going by whoever got the question first to make sure that we gave that person that opportunity. Go ahead, sir. My fault. I apologize for that.
Yeah, okay. 26% of our community is Hispanic, 24% of our community is African American, 1% is other, and the rest are Anglo. Having one person working in every department does not reflect that. Having one person that speaks Spanish in every department does not reflect that. If we're going to be intentional, we have to be intentional. We need to open up opportunities for all members of our community to be able to reach out to the mayor's office so that we can address all those issues of diversity in our community. It is so important because we need a buy-in from everyone, not just the groups that are politically active, okay? And we can do that. I myself am diverse. I'm Hispanic, and I speak both Spanish and English, and I can address those issues better than someone who cannot.
Mayor Mason.
I think characterizing it as it just being one person in every department that reflects the diversity of the community is a mischaracterization of what's happening here. We've actually seen a real increase in the percentage of people who work in these departments that are Latino and Latina and African Americans. We've seen more diversity in our departments than we've ever seen before. And with the city's help, we've invested in a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer that is making sure that every department has a plan to make sure that we're achieving the diversity goals. And we hear again and again from the community how important that is. It's not just one person per department. It's making sure that anytime somebody goes to any department, there's somebody there who can communicate with them in English or Spanish. But it is substantially more than one person per department, and describing it that way is a mischaracterization of all the good work that the city has done to make our place as an employer a more diverse and inclusive place to be.
Thank you. Next question, please, sir. And this goes to Mr. Perez first. Would you support driving license for undocumented immigrants, sir?
That was for me, Doctor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So there's advantages to that and there's disadvantages. In the past, I supported driver's license because it identifies who the person is. With the level of crime that we have in our community, people need to be identified. They don't have a driver's license, it becomes unsafe because they also don't have insurance. So if we get them to get a driver's license, they would need to get insurance. We're able to identify them. There's a car crash and they pass away or something like that. So that's a very complicated question. Even though they may be undocumented, we have to be concerned with what that brings to our community as well. Legal immigration is very important for us. Illegal immigration is something that we need to address even within our city, and use our resources so that the state can help us do what we need to do to make those steps, or the federal government for that matter, so that the people that are in our community are undocumented have the responsibility to get documented and be active, tax-paying participants in our community.
Same question, Mayor Mason. Would you support driving license for undocumented immigrants, sir?
I would. This is a proposal that I actually endorsed and co-sponsored when I was a legislator at least twice, maybe 3 times. Look, the reason this makes sense is as we have unemployment getting lower, we hear more and more from employers who are looking for qualified people to do work. And we know one of the biggest barriers for people to get into jobs is to have the opportunity to have a driver's card, to get insurance, to drive safely. But as importantly, people might not realize how important a driver's license is, not just to drive around town, but to become employed. To give an employer the confidence that, hey, are you going to be able to get here every day when I need you to show up on time? And giving people that opportunity not only gives them the freedom to drive around town, it gives them the freedom and the dignity to find work, to provide for themselves and their family. We are a nation of immigrants. We are a community of immigrants. And everybody who came here before, unless you're a Native American, everybody who came here before who had forebears who came here who were given those opportunities. We need to make sure that this generation of immigrants who are in our community can thrive and achieve the American dream. And that means giving them access to resources and the other things that we all know are needed so that people can achieve the American dream and live a middle-class life. That is substantially harder to do for people who can't even get a driver's card. It is also substantially harder for our employers who are telling us repeatedly that they need employees. They need the opportunity to hire people, whether you're running a dairy farm in rural Wisconsin or you're running a factory here in the city of Racine. We hear this again and again, that the valid driver's license makes it harder for employees. As importantly, it makes it harder for employees to hire the workers. economy can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Perez, you have 1 minute for a rebuttal if you so choose, sir.
Yeah, having a driver's card is important for the legality and for the identification. But that would also mean most likely that the person is here undocumented and is actually committing a crime. If we find these people and we can help them with our resources to become residents legally in our country, that would be a greater goal that also would involve getting driver's licenses and being able to work and contribute. Right now, for a fact that there are many people who don't have driver's licenses because they're undocumented and they're working under the table. We as a city cannot continue to encourage lawlessness, and we have to consider that as we move forward. Thank you.
Mr. Perez, to push that further, you say it's a crime, but you stated also that you would support undocumented immigrants getting a driving license. Could you rectify that or like to explain that, make it clear?
We know in our community there's a large number of people who are undocumented. We're not going to make them go away right now, but if we can identify them, we can help them become legal. We're in a position in the city where we as a people need to help our residents become contributors to our community. We do this with crime. You go to the court and you have a suspended license, we give you your license back on a certain day a year, a couple times a year, so that you can continue to drive. So we need to recognize that even though there is lawlessness, we address it and help go from lawlessness to lawfulness. And then we can legitimately say that we've helped these people who are in need, who we need in our community, to be true contributors to our society.
Same thing with you, Mr. Mayor. You said yes also, and once again, he talks about lawlessness, and it's against the law. Would you explain further also, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important distinction to make. I don't think you can have your cake and eat it too on this, right? I mean, do you support driver's cars undocumented? Yes. Is it important to make it clear that people aren't illegal? That people's status around immigration isn't by itself make the person illegal? These are human beings who, like generations before mine, came here to achieve the American dream. And to be able to do that unequivocally, in a position to be able to help them get driver's cards so that they can get the jobs they need and the employees they need. I don't think that means working with ICE and handing over lists of people that have gotten driver's card. I want to be very clear about that. So if we want people to succeed, if we want people to have good relationships with law enforcement and trust our community, you have to build trust and confidence in local units of government like the city. I think driver's cards are a good way to do that. But to be really clear, people aren't illegal. People are here that are immigrants that are trying to provide for their family, and giving them driver's cards is the least we can do to help them achieve the American dream.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, this question goes to you since the last question went to Alderman Perez first.
An advisory referendum last year to ask voters of this city if they thought we should appeal the 1849 abortion ban, which was passed before women even had the right to vote in this country. And we found that more than 70% of Racine residents strongly agree with that. I think if we want to have a community that values freedom, we have to trust women to make their own medical decisions and give them the opportunity with their doctor and their families and who they seem is appropriate to make a decision about reproductive freedom, about birth, or whatever. I think it's important for those rights that we enjoyed for 50 years. We now live in a country where my mother grew up with more freedom than my daughters will, and that has to change.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Perez, sir, same question. 70% of Racine voters want to restore Roe. Your position on this, sir?
Simple. This is a state issue. Them on doing this. Now, if you're asking me personally about my position on abortion, is that what it is?
I'll reread the question.
Yes, sir.
70% of Racine voters want to restore Roe v. Wade. What is your position on this?
Yes, thank you. Calling at the time.
That's okay.
We're about reproductive rights and we talked about women's health. You have the right to reproduce anytime you want, but you also have to be responsible and care about your choices, okay? 70% of our community is for it. That's something you do in your private time. We have no control on whether we enforce that or not. The state has issues on that. So as mayor, we hear you, we can bring forward information, but personally, as he said, you know, my family, yeah, I believe in all your reproductive rights. I don't believe is necessary. For example, in my understanding, rape, incest, medical issues when the baby is causing the death of the parent, no, that's the time that you can have because it's a medical issue. And you agree with me on that, and that's fine. But here's the point. You have to take responsibility for your actions. You can't just say, oh, I don't want a baby now because I was irresponsible. Okay? You just can't say, I decided one day to be involved, and the next thing I know, I'm pregnant, I want to get rid of this baby. We know that at 14 days, there's already a heartbeat. So you need to consider what is right before you and before the community. We have no control over that.
Mayor Mason, you have one. Thank you, Alderman Perez. Mayor Mason, you have 1 minute to offer a rebuttal if you so choose, sir.
I trust in this country. I think that the leadership that is shown, whether it's at the state level or the federal level or the local level, is really important. What kind of living have the their own medical decisions or not. I strongly believe and trust in a woman's right to make their own decisions. And I don't think elected officials like me or the ones in Madison or Washington, D.C. know better than women and their doctors about what is best for them.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Perez, you have 1 minute to offer rebuttal, sir.
Medical decisions, very important. And you're right, they're between your doctor and you. So you need to recognize how it's going to benefit you or not. But that decision falls on you. That decision does not fall on the city. If you want to have an abortion and you're going to call that medical care and it's not necessary, that one's on you.
Gentlemen, thank you both. Alderman Perez, since the last question went to Mayor, this one is for you first. Can you assist the Latino community to create a space to help them know their rights in Racine?
Can you repeat the last part?
Can you assist the Latino community to create a center to help them know their rights in Racine?
You could face me. I don't know the last words.
Can you assist the Latino community to create a Spanish center to help them know their rights in Racine?
Oh, been in discussion with the community that are going to do it privately. And that's great because for many years we've said in Racine that we need a Spanish center, but with the current administration and the previous administration, it never came to fruition. Everyone in our community deserves the right to be heard and to progress. We have a lot of members in our community, like I said, 26% who are Hispanic, and if they need help with their rights and if they need help with any issue that comes before them, like starting a business, yeah, we would gladly sponsor a Spanish center.
Thank you, Alderman Perez. Mayor Mason, same question, sir.
That's a great question. As mayor, one of the best things we get to do is help facilitate nonprofits and small businesses that want to succeed. And so out of the work that we've been able to do to offer grants to small businesses and nonprofits that want to start projects just like this. But the other thing that's really important, whether it's the Spanish Center or anyone else, is the other thing that the city can do and that we have done that I'm very proud of is we help marry resources together between different nonprofits and different agencies. So the city itself is not a nonprofit. We don't run nonprofits. But what we do, whether it's putting people in touch who might need resources around human services Or if it's a Spanish center that might need help figuring out how they're going to get legal advice, that might mean working with Rick or working with Civil Legal Services, who are beginning to get people certified to do that work, and bringing those groups together and saying, hey, you would be stronger together if you could introduce yourselves to one another and see what's there. And when we can, we use ARPA funds or CDBG funds to help get those programs off the ground. So it's not only about can you help support those efforts, but can you help bring community resources together so that they're stronger than they might be by themselves, and introduce themselves to different parts of the community where you often hear people say, I didn't realize there was a nonprofit in town that was working on that. This is great. Now I can work on this program and let our members or our constituency know about the work that we're doing. So it means convening people, it means doing the outreach and going to the organizations that are representing different parts of the community, listening to what their concerns are, funding them through different resources. We'll have done more than $1 million in small business grants and nonprofit grants in the time that I've been mayor. Those are all opportunities for nonprofits to move forward and not only, again, build capacity for the future, but marry them with different resources to provide them with the very things that they might be looking for.
Alderman Perez, so you have 1 minute for rebuttal if you so choose.
I'm a member of organizations like LULAC that help with abuses, perceived abuses within the school system. And we've always tried to help the Latino community as well in any issue that comes before them, even business issues. Right now, there is no Hispanic center. We've been talking about having a Hispanic center since I was an alderman. I started 10 years ago. It has not happened. Our Hispanic community, because they are not vocal like our African American community, and because many, as we've looked at before, may be undocumented or afraid to come forward, we need to have a place where they feel comfortable sharing, and together we're going to help resolve some of those issues, because they're valuable members of our community, and we need to be concerned with that everyone is being heard, and we're going to do that. We even have volunteers in place right now.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Mason, 1 minute for rebuttal if you so choose, sir.
Yeah, again, I mean, I think it's fantastic to bring nonprofits to the fore who want to start or reemerge. We provided lots of resources to be able to give people grants and small businesses. But again, we find that when we bring people together, that we are stronger than the work that we can do by ourselves. And so that work and those efforts, whether it's using the community centers to do outreach or matching people up with different county resources or school district resources or other nonprofits that are there, we find that it is much more effective to bring people together. They find out that they are stronger working in coalition with people. And so we want to give every nonprofit the opportunity to succeed and facilitate the opportunity for them to meet other resources and other groups that are providing really important resources that might get at some of the things that they want to do, or it might be that you've got a group that's meeting a completely unmet need and fill in that space. But either way, the city's there to help facilitate and offer resources wherever we can.
Thank you, Mayor Mason. Thank you both gentlemen for answering that question. Mayor Mason, this question is for you first, sir. What is the first thing you plan to do if you are successfully elected?
The first thing I plan to do, after we sort of thank everybody for their confidence in reelecting me for another 4 years, we've got to continue the work that we're doing to make sure we have safe and healthy communities. And so that means making sure that we're continuing the work of the Violent Crime Reduction Initiative. I'm really thrilled about the work that's happening not only in law enforcement and community-oriented policing, but with our violence prevention efforts, where we're doing Safe and Sound and working with community connectors with the school district and the county to make sure we're reaching out to people. But it also means building up neighborhoods. It means making sure that we have resources in place so that people living in neighborhoods thrive, we have over 200 people who are now first-time home buyers in the city of Racine because of the efforts that we've done. We've had over 400 people who are adults who now have a high school diploma. Just a couple months ago, 80 of them walked right across the stage here, and to see the pride on their faces to be able to do that. So it's about building safe and healthy communities where we're doing the work not only to solve crimes and prevent crimes, but to lift those neighborhoods up, because we know that safe neighborhoods are strong neighborhoods, and strong neighborhoods with a thriving middle class are safe. So those are the resources and activities that I want to bring to bear and continue to build on our good work in a second term when you reelect me as your mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Mason. Alderman Perez, same question. What is the first thing you plan to do if you are successfully elected?
The first thing I plan to do if I'm successfully elected, and you said the first thing, not 20 things, is I'm going to settle the police and fire contract. It's still in the process in some areas, and it's not done. We deserve a safe city. And of course, everything's complicated, but if we don't have police officers and they continue to leave, we're not going to be able to go outside. We are down from 2020, 67 police officers right now. 2 more, is my understanding, are going to be retiring tomorrow. That's creating quite a problem for us, okay? And so we will establish policing. And you ask, Henry, how can you do that? Well, I'm a retired police sergeant. I'm also a certified community policing manager. So I plan on restoring the community policing program, intensifying it, and working with the community members to make sure that we address issues that are related to law enforcement. For example, poverty, housing, those kinds of things. And some people said, well, you're not a social service agency. Yeah, we're not, but all these problems are related one to another. And so it has to be a really broad approach to handling this. But primarily, we need to establish that we are going to be a safe city. Being a safe city, we can thrive. Being a safe city, we can rebuild. Being a safe city, we can work. Being a safe city, we can play. And right now, you don't have that.
Mayor Mason, you have 1 minute for a rebuttal if you so choose, sir.
Yeah, again, I think having safe and healthy communities is critical, but it is an all of the above strategy. It is law enforcement, but it is investing in neighborhoods, it is investing in our kids and our schools, it is making sure that we're doing the violence prevention work that we know works. But that means bringing real resources to bear. We've invested more than $10 million in public safety through the ARPA funds. We have more money in this space than we've ever had before, whereas we're bringing in not only in law enforcement, but in violence prevention to make sure that the neighborhoods and the kids have the resources they need to make sure that they thrive and succeed. It is all interconnected. It is, if you want to have safe neighborhoods, you need to have strong neighborhoods with a strong and thriving middle class. You have to address it all holistically, and that's what we've been doing with the Violent Crime Reduction Initiative since last summer, where we're not only making arrests and holding violent criminals accountable, but we are investing in the prevention work that we know is going to have a real impact on improving the lives of the people who live in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, for education purposes, you mentioned Arbor funds, CDBG funds. Could you briefly tell the audience what those are before I give
Thank you very much. You get a lot of acronyms in government, so I really appreciate the opportunity to do that. CDBG is Community Development Block Grants. These are funds that come from the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. And every year we're allocated a certain amount, and some of those dollars can go towards helping nonprofits. We've used some of that money to increase the hours at our community centers. We use some of those dollars to increase funding to many of the nonprofits that are in this room. ARPA, or the American Rescue Plan Act, is really the work that President Biden did along with Congress shortly after COVID broke to make sure that communities like ours could still thrive through the worst pandemic in a century. If it weren't for that, we would have even bigger structural deficit problems. It has given us a 4-year reprieve to stabilize our budget and to invest in our community to deal with the most severe impacts of COVID. It is how we are paying for these adult high school programs. It is how we are paying for first-time home buyers. It is how we are strengthening our middle class. It's money that's only available for a limited time, but we are planning to make generational opportunities out of it to make a stronger neighborhood and a stronger middle class.
It's blowing, the
Can
person
you hear me?
doing the live stream said it's blowing up.
Gotcha.
his-
Thank you for that, that educational aspect. Oftentimes we hear all of those acronyms and don't have any idea what they mean. Mr. Perez, you have 1.5 minutes for a rebuttal since
I don't even remember what the question was.
I'll give it to you again. What is the first thing you plan to do what is the first thing you plan to do if you are successfully elected?
Yeah,
You mentioned.
law enforcement and so forth. Yeah. Rebuttal to the mayor, is that the?
Yes, sir, you got 1 minute. I'm gonna give you 1.5 minutes since he gave the acronyms for the funds.
Yeah, all those things are very important for our community. And he didn't say my administration this time, but I am part of that group that has approved many of those things moving forward. We need to recognize that you cannot be dragged into crime prevention programs. Okay? We need to go there voluntarily. We need to educate our community to recognize the need of how to work together with the police. We need to help our children be in a place where they're not afraid. And we need to be in a society where we don't consider schools or the presence of the police to be the pipeline to jail. When I've worked as a school resource officer, I developed programs called, for example, Schools Communities Officers Relationship Education, where we did just that. Instead of being suspended, you spent time with the cops, you learned about drugs, you learned about weapons, you learned about all those kinds of things. I actually proposed it and it didn't go anywhere. But those are the types of things that we have to do. I'm not sure I'm rebutting him, but I'm just filling in what we said. It has to be a team, and we need to do it, not just using the money, but we need to be hands-on with the kids, especially the kids, because our society, we don't have a lot of parents that are two parents, we have single families, and that becomes a great problem.
You mentioned the prison to pipeline and getting rid of the fear in minority communities about the police, especially the black and the brown community. How would you go about doing that? Because would you agree that that's ingrained?
Oh, absolutely.
How would you go about doing that?
In my particular case, growing up in Miami, being a Cuban, and coming into a police relationship, the first thing that happened to me, when I was in a car being pulled over, is that you got slapped in the face, okay? I will, for a fact, start with, if there is any misbehavior on the cop's part, or any abuse, they're gonna be gone. That is not acceptable. As we continue to try to put officers back in the schools, because now they don't have time to be in the schools all the time, that's where we start, with the little children, bringing them together so that they can meet cops and they see that, no, this is not, this is a good thing. When I was a school resource officer, we were the highest awarded department in the state of Florida. I have over 100 commendations, over a dozen department awards, all because we work with the kids in our communities to prevent violence, to prevent gangs, and we were very successful. We're nationally award-winning programs.
Thank you, Alderman. This question is for you, Alderman Perez. How do you believe you can positively impact Racine Unified School District in this elected position?
The school system, even though we are not part of that government association, has to recognize that with us working together, it is critical for the future of our city. People do not come here when they hear how our schools are doing. They go to Union Grove. They go to other places. So our schools have to understand, with their limited resources, that they need to work together with the city so that people want to come into the city and develop that. Now we've gone to academies of Racine, which I think is starting to do a real good job. It's kind of new. I know this firsthand. I teach 8th grade dual language special education, so I see the kids that I have there. One of the critical things that I find, though, is that a lot of kids are dysregulated. I don't know if that's because of COVID or not, but we need to go back to the kids and say, hey, this is the way you behave in a society if you want to get respected. And we need to learn some of those things in our community. And that happens with all the kids. It's not just different groups. But once the schools realize that our relationship has to be much stronger, even though they're a different governmental agency, I think we can continue to grow our city because people will want to come. We were once one of the best schools in the whole state, and now we're rated down at the bottom. So the issue is critical to the development of Racine.
Thank you, Alderman. Mr. Mayor, same question. How do you believe you can positively impact the Racine Unified School District in this elected position?
It's a really important question. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that it's Public Schools Week and how important our public schools are. I have said this repeatedly. The future success of our city is directly tied to the future success of our public schools. They are inexorably entwined. The future of our community depends on that for so many reasons. So what can I do as a mayor for the school district since I'm not on the school board? Well, there's a couple things. I would be remiss if I didn't Also say that I am a proud graduate of Racine Unified Schools. So if you like the work that I do as a public servant, you can thank the public schools for that. If you don't like the work I do, don't blame the schools, blame me. But I'd also like to say that I have confidence in our public schools, and my 3 kids are getting a great education in Racine Unified Schools. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge that there is great education happening every day in our schools. So what can we do to partner? There are big ways and small ways that we can do that. So next week, we'll be approving a partnership with Racine Unified School District, where our Parks and Rec staff will start to do after-school programming and athletic leagues, just to make sure something positive and constructive for kids to do after school and into the summer. It means that we're working more closely than ever. But in more important ways than that, it means strongly saying, I support the school referendum. I've supported the last 2 school referendum, because we have buildings that kids are going to school that are more than 100 years old. Right? You don't see that in the suburbs, but you see it here, right? Our kids deserve schools that are every bit as good as the ones of those other districts that you all mentioned. If we want our kids to succeed, we have to invest in our educators and our kids to make sure that they have the resources to succeed. That is the future of our workforce. That is the future of our community. And so as mayor, I think it's one of the most important things that I can do is to be a champion for our public schools, because being a champion for your public schools is about investing in the future in the community, and it shows the employers and the parents and everybody else that in this town, we value our public schools and we value the future of our children and their success in our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Mason. Alderman Perez, you have 1 minute for rebuttal if you so choose, sir.
Mayor Mason said he was a graduate. It was like 30 years ago? I don't know.
1991.
Okay. So the school is different. I can tell you because I'm there every day. I've been in a position where kids shot a gun to the bathroom, which is next to my classroom. I break up fights on many days as I sit in the hallway as they transition. We need to partner to help the community understand that the education of our community and our children and the safety of our community and our children is tantamount to establishing a Racine where people want to come to work, play, thrive. And like I said, right now it's not happening. He can tout all the programs he wants, but we need to be better and more involved in a partnership where we address the issues that are primary first, starting with the little kids and then moving up.
Thank you, Alderman Perez. Mayor Mason, you have 1 minute for rebuttal if you so choose, sir.
I'm in those schools too. We just had parent-teacher conferences today with our kids. I know how important it is to be in those schools and make sure that they're safe and environments where our kids can thrive. Look, it means having these partnerships with the school district, but I would put what we've done in the last 5 years under my administration to work with Racine Unified and be champions for the referendum and champions for all those partnerships, and knowing firsthand how important it is to make sure that those community schools models can work, that we're working with the United Way to not only address the curriculum needs of our kids, but the challenges that they bring to those schools, right? It's why we're going to build a health clinic right next door to Julian Thomas School, because we want to make sure that we're providing health care to the community, but we're putting it right next to a Racine Unified School where we have kids with above average needs, that they deserve every bit a chance to succeed like anyone else in any other more affluent community. It means taking real partnerships, it means making real investments and taking real risks to say, I believe in the future of our public schools because I believe in the future of our community. If you re-elect me, you're going to continue to have a champion for public education.
Thank you, Mayor Mason. Perfect segue. Next question. This question is for you, Mr. Mayor. What is your position on closing the loophole on private gun sales?
It is actually a critically important thing that we have to do to be able to get at the gun violence that we're seeing. Look, we are now in a country that has more guns than we do people. And so as we're dealing with gun violence, it's not just a Racine problem, it is a national problem. And it's, whether you're listening to the Wisconsin Attorney General or federal legislators, they will tell you that our ability to get ahead of gun crime, it of course has to do with a law enforcement strategy, but it means closing some of these loopholes to make sure that guns that were sold legally don't get handed off illegally to felons and minors and other people that shouldn't have them in the first place. If we're serious about reducing gun violence, we have to get serious about gun safety, and that's why you need to continue to advocate for that. The unfortunate thing is in the state of Wisconsin, we have been preempted at the local level from doing anything at all about gun safety. The legislature has made it unlawful for us to do anything about ghost guns, about anything else. So if you're serious about reducing gun crime, you have to get serious about illegal guns that are on the street and the causes of why we see so much more gun violence. You can't just say it's about law enforcement. You also have to address the real concerns about people who have guns illegally and the havoc that it wreaks.
Thank you, Mayor Mason. Alderman Perez, same question, sir. What is your position on closing the loophole on private gun sales?
The loophole on private gun sales, that's really a good question, because that's not what was addressed here. Right now, you can go to a gun show and transfer your weapon to another person if they pay the price with no checks. Legal guns always have a background check. And in my opinion, that cannot happen anymore. If you're going to trade a gun, if you're going to buy a gun, you need a background check. That is just the minimal of it. We cannot control as a society what happens after the person buys a gun, okay? But I will tell you this. I'm a nationally certified firearms instructor. In one of the classes that I teach, 3/4 of it is how to avoid being in a situation where you may need to handle a gun, okay? And about 1/4 of the class is, this is how you handle a gun, if you need to. But that has to be the last and ultimate solution if there's a problem. Again, this is something that's addressed at the federal level. This is something that's addressed at the state level. Within our city, unfortunately, I don't think we can do much about it because it's at that level. But I will tell you this. If you're interested in a class on gun safety and violence abatement, let me know. I'll be happy to teach you at no cost.
Thank you, Alderman Perez. Mayor Mason, you have 1 minute rebuttal if you so choose, sir.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the issue of gun safety is critically important. I've got a long history as a legislator and as a mayor wanting to see us do more. I will say, always knew it was important as a legislator. As a mayor, seeing the rise in gun violence, I know how important it is. So just to be clear, I do support closing that gun loophole to make sure that we don't have people illegally possessing guns who shouldn't have them. I have a position that says that we need to be safe around that. My opponent has proposed legislation to allow people to carry concealed weapons in City Hall. I don't think that's the appropriate approach that we want to take around gun safety. So if you're serious about the work of reducing gun violence, we have to take it seriously, and we have to do everything we can to be able to try to reduce gun violence with all the tools we have at the local level, but working with state and federal officials too, to make sure we're holding people accountable who have guns that shouldn't. But if we want it to stop, we have to change the reasons why it's happening in the first place.
Alderman Perez, you have 1 minute for rebuttal if you so choose, sir.
I proposed the city employees to be able to carry guns while they're working. It didn't make it out of committee, and that was fine at the time. But look at what's happening now in our community. There's a lot of gun violence. Our employees do not feel safe. They're afraid to go even walk on a sidewalk next to people. They're the ones giving them fines, so it's kind of dangerous. But I also agree, like he said, the loophole needs to be stopped. If you buy a gun, get trained, get permission by being licensed to be able to carry it. And once we do that, we're addressing a major part of the problem with gun violence. Now, if you look and see who's doing the gun violence, you'll see that a lot of it is teenagers, gang warfare. It goes back to addressing how are we going to deal with the issue of the gangs in our community. And that's where law enforcement, social workers, mental health are all critical.
Gentlemen, let's stay there. Let's spend, I want to give both of you 30 seconds each on this issue. What is the answer? Is it guns or just what is the answer? 30 seconds, Mr. Mayor.
Well, for all the people who've argued for a long time that what we need to solve violence in this community is make sure that there are more guns, I think we've seen in real world evidence why that is not working, right? So I don't think the answer is more guns. I think it's making sure that we have safe and healthy communities. But if you want to do that, you have to make sure that the people who are illegally getting the guns can't do it in the first place. But I don't think more instruments of violence is the way that we are going to reduce gun violence. I think we have to be serious about it, and I don't think arming everybody is the solution to a safe community.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 30 seconds, Mr. Alderman Perez, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. I don't know that there is a solution because legally people refer back to the Second Amendment. But again, we have to change those loopholes so that we put pieces into place that will minimize the danger of that in our community. Right now, I agree. There shouldn't be that many guns in our community, but it's legal to do. And because it's legal to do, we have to be in a situation where we have to be careful and we have to protect ourselves if we had the need to do it.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Perez, this question is for you, sir. How would you continue the progress that has been made to keep the LBGT plus community of Racine safe and treated equally?
That's a great question. And I've been beat up on this before, but nobody ever asked me the question. My sister and my aunt are gay. I support people. But the issue, and I have friends that are gay, or LBGTQ, well. The issue is this: we have to respect people, no matter what their belief system is. And it behooves us as a community to respect people, not necessarily their belief system. We don't go around beating up people because they're different than us. We don't give them opportunities because they believe differently. Everyone has the right to be heard. Everyone has the right to do what they can legally do. And so people need to be respected.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, same question, sir.
I'm very proud of the work that we've done with the LGBT Center here in Southeast Wisconsin to make this a safer place for our community, for everyone in our community to live. When I got into office, it was very early on. I think it was within my first month. There was an announcement made that we had a score of 38 out of 100 on whether or not this was a safe and welcoming community for the LGBT community. I'm proud to say that we are a handful of communities that achieved 100% perfect score on that index in the last year. That took hard work. That took listening to the advocates within the community. It took changing real policies, but it meant listening when people came forward before the council and, for example, said, we need a ban on conversion therapy so that we're not trying to convince young people that they aren't who they think they are. My opponent voted against that ban on conversion therapy. If we're serious about respecting people's rights, we have to back it up with our actions and not just our words. So I am thrilled with the progress that we've made with the LGBT community here, honored to have achieved a 100% perfect score, but it really took the advocacy of members of our community coming forward, telling their stories about how they were really hurt. But so long as I'm mayor, this is going to be a community where you can thrive and be the best loved version of yourself, no matter who you are or what your identity is or how you see your gender or what your sexual orientation is. As long as I'm mayor, that's going to continue to be a priority. Thank you.
Alderman Perez, 1 minute for rebuttal, sir, if you see fit.
My argument was that the churches should not be told by the city government what they can or cannot do. And that was the primary focus of my argument there. The churches have a right to believe what they want to believe and do what they wanted to do. The city has no right to tell the church. There's separation of church and state as we move forward. And so that was my focus at the time. And like I said, everyone in our community must be respected. And that's going to play out in all our administration. That's going to play out in the parks. That's going to play out with the health inspectors. And anybody that I find out that is discriminating for any reason whatsoever, they're going to be gone.
Mason, 1 minute for rebuttal, sir.
Look, I heard those stories when they were in front of city council of people who came forward who talked about how deeply they were hurt by somebody trying to force them to believe that they were something that they weren't. It's particularly damaging for children. And as we see suicide rates amongst LGBT youth unacceptably high in this community and across the country, the last thing we should be doing is telling somebody that they have to convert to a gender identity or a sexual orientation that they are not. Again, talk is cheap. If you want to see who's really in favor of equity in this community, look at not only what we say, but what we do when we're given the opportunity to support policies that keep us all safe.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your comments on that question. Mayor Mason, this is for you. We have about 20 minutes, and this may be the last question. Hopefully I can squeeze in one more. But Mayor Mason, what has been your greatest accomplishment so far to improve our city through service to its citizens?
That's a great question. I would just point to the Grow Racine initiative that we've been doing. It really puts at the center of the work we're doing the work around equity. There was also indications early on in my tenure that there were real disparities between the African American community and the rest of the community. And so we set to work to close some of those gaps. And so we've made real progress on improving home ownership for families of color. We've made real progress on over 400 adults now graduating from high school. We're giving financial counseling for free to make sure that our residents have the credit scores and the background to make sure that they can succeed and get into the middle class. Look, people remember a time when we had a bigger, more thriving middle class, when there were more factory jobs and everybody had a union card and everybody could afford to buy a home. We need to get back to that. I am thrilled about driving down unemployment to the lowest level it's been in a generation, but we need to lift people up. We need to invest in the things that we know put people in the middle class. That means a good paying job, that means a good education, that means access to health care that we're gonna bring through the health clinic. It is investing in our people and having strong neighborhoods with a thriving middle class that I am most proud of that we've done around our Grow Racine initiative. And when reelected, we're gonna continue the work that we've just begun. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Perez, same question, sir.
Personally, I take great pride in the fact that over the last 10 years, when people have had issues with City Hall, and there have been many, they know to come to me. Because I get information from all the districts where people are saying, Henry, I don't understand this. City Hall is not helping. What can we do? And I help walk them through the process. I've developed a trust with the members of the community, all members of the community that have reached out to me. I will help them. And I think that's my greatest accomplishment. I'm a people person. I'm an administrator. And the things we've done is, as he mentioned in the city, yeah, we've been doing it. I've been on council for 10 years. I voted for most of all that stuff, probably, because I feel they're so important as well. So the greatest accomplishment is trust. The greatest accomplishment also follows with accessibility. And right now, those are critical to our future.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, 1 minute rebuttal if you so see fit, sir.
I mean, again, the one thing I would say about the work that we've done around the Grow Racine initiative is I am proud of the work that we've done to lead that out of the mayor's office, but it has taken partnering with a lot of nonprofits and a lot of community groups and a lot of people that were willing to do the work and move forward and really good and important work to reach out to the community to make sure they know what opportunities exist. So it starts with the leadership of a vision to be able to grow the middle class, but it really takes working with a lot of community partners who are willing to pair up and do that work, and a lot of outreach to make sure that our residents know the opportunities that are there and that we don't give up on anybody in this town, and we want everyone to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think we can squeeze in one more. Alderman Perez, sir. How would you plan to address the issues of protecting our environment?
Okay, that's a very good question. We've gone to green stuff in the city. It's costing a lot of money, and that's very important too. We have a responsibility to basically take care of the earth. That is our future, that is our home. You know, we take care of the birds of the heavens, the fish of the sea, and everything that moves upon the earth, okay? We must continue understanding and working with reducing, like carbon pollution, going forward. But we have to be responsible in how we do that. I just had a man whose card I have here a couple of weeks ago address me. He has a solution for us. He has a company that he wants to bring here to Racine where he will take all our garbage and he will take all our recycling and he'll produce water and oxygen. I don't know if this is true or not, but he told me that he brought that to the mayor and the mayor rejected it. That I don't understand, because that would be great in addressing our greening of Greater Racine, okay? And I know that's something we use here. So my goal when I become the mayor is to let people come to me and say, give me your solutions. Let's see if it's workable, and let's take care of this issue so it doesn't become an issue for our children. It doesn't become an issue for our community. We live in a great city. We live right off the water. What can we, we want people to come here. We want them to say, oh, let's go on vacation. Let's go to Racine. Well, that's going to be critical because if all our land is polluted, they can't come. They won't come. So those are the ways we need to address some of these issues.
Thank you, Alderman Perez, sir. Mayor Mason, same question, sir. How would you plan to address the issue of protecting our environment?
So it means building on the work that we've already done. One of the first things I did when I was elected mayor is go to the council and say, I think we should adopt the goals of the Paris Climate Accord and begin the work of decarbonization to make sure that I can look my kids in the eye and tell them that they're going to inherit a world that's worth inheriting, that they're not going to have to worry about a world that's so ravaged by climate change that it's difficult. But as important as climate change is, and I am so proud of the solar field that we've put in, that we've got a bus fleet that has the most electric vehicles as a percentage of anywhere else in the community, that we're doing the work to make sure that that health clinic we're going to build is going to be the first net zero building in our community. I'm proud of that work. But the work around protecting the environment goes beyond just climate change. The impacts of climate and the built environment, that affects the poor and underclass parts of our community the most. And so protecting the environment also means replacing the lead pipes that go to so many of our homes. It means making sure that kids live in an environment where there aren't lead paint chips on the wall or the windowsills that give them poisoning. So the work of the environment isn't just the work around climate. It is making sure that the work that we do to protect a park is every bit as important as the work that we do to make sure that our kids have safe access to drinking water, that they're not being poisoned by their built environment. We have to do both. That's the original vision of what Earth Day is, that was founded by Gaylord Nelson, our senator from this state. But it means doing the work through the lens of environmental justice and making sure the parts of the community that have been most severely impacted by climate change are the ones most likely to receive the benefits that Joe Biden and the Democrats did in Congress to bring us the Inflation Reduction Act and the infrastructure bill to bring real resources to rebuild our communities so that everyone can succeed, regardless of what year their home was built in or how old their lead pipes are or whatever we might do. It's doing the work on climate, but it's rebuilding our neighborhoods to make sure that they're safe and healthy for everyone.
Thank you, Mayor Mason. Alderman Perez, you have 1 minute for rebuttal if you so see fit, sir.
What the mayor has said is true. And we do continue that, and we will continue to make sure that our children are not poisoned by lead. Everything we can do within our power, we will do, because that's the responsibility we have to our community. And it may take resources that we don't currently have. It may take resources that are not even developed yet. But when they are, we need to consider it. And we talked about the Paris Accord. That's very lofty, worldwide, but we need to focus on local. What can we do locally to mitigate what the pollution that's going on in our community? And recycling, energy building, taking our trash, those are critical to our infrastructure right now. And that's where we have to start. It's way bigger, but it has to be locally. It cannot be internationally. We have to do our part.
Thank you, Alderman Perez. Mayor Mason, you have 1 minute for rebuttal if you see so fit, sir.
Yeah, I mean, environment and environmental justice, it's a big concept that has to have the room to make sure, yes, it's a global challenge, but it requires local solutions, and it requires leadership at the local level to have a vision to figure out how you are going to begin to move the energy that the city consumes to a carbon-free environment, and the built environments that the kids live in, that our neighborhoods live in, are safe and healthy for them to just be, to have the opportunity to make sure they can succeed without being poisoned by the environment. Yeah, it's a global issue, but it hits us at home every single day, and it takes concerted effort day in and day out to have a plan to begin to figure out how many lead pipes can we replace a year, how many homes that are riddled with lead paint can get remediated in a given year, particularly if they're with children, making sure that our daycare centers and our schools don't have faulty infrastructure. This is the work that we have to do to make sure that everyone lives in an environment where they are safe and healthy and they can thrive.
Thank you, Mayor Mason. Gentlemen, we're coming to the close tonight. Alderman Henry Perez, you have 4 minutes, sir, for your closing statement.
Thank you, Doctor. Friends, you've heard us tonight, and you've seen the varied issues and how different we are in this approach. But let me tell you something. I am concerned for this city. I moved here in 2005, and I've loved this city. I don't see it going in the direction that it needs to go. I've seen it go down since I got here. I'm very disappointed in that. I moved here from Miami, and I was so happy to be in Racine, Wisconsin. Okay? When you look at our leadership styles, they are different. He is a polished politician. He's only had one job, and when he was in high school, I think, the rest of the time he's been a politician. Man, he is good, okay? But I've worked hard. I've worked since I've been in high school, sometimes 2 and 3 and 4 jobs at a time just to make ends meet. I understand our community. I understand that we have to work hard, that our money is valuable. I don't want to waste our tax money on things that may appear frivolous to others. We have to concentrate right now on the important things: public safety, housing, roads, okay? Everything else has to be secondary to what's primary, okay? And we can do that, and we need to work together to do that. You will have access to me as your mayor. You will also have the opportunity to bring your ideas, and I'm not going to be in a pay-to-play situation. I will listen, or someone on my staff will listen and come to you and bring it to me if we need to. I will listen to all the proposals that are out there, even if I have to spend the night doing it, okay? You will have a voice in city council. And right now, many members of the community have come to me because they say, city council is not listening to me, the mayor is not listening to me. That's going to change. So you've heard this, varying plans, similar plans as well, because I've been in council for 10 years and I voted for many of the things you said. But you have to recognize this. We need to move forward. You've seen the leadership that we've had so far. We need a greater vision. We need a newer vision. We need a vision that includes you. And I believe that we need to work here to make this a better place where people want to come. I think we can do that under my leadership. Under my leadership, we can be safe as best as we can by making sure we have a fully staffed police department. And not only that, working with the kids. I voted in the past to keep the parks open late when they were going to get closed down because I know how important that is. I grew up in the inner city, okay? And the parks were my savior when I was growing up. We need programs for our children that will help them understand how to deal with the stress that they're having and address mental health issues. During my administration, that's going to happen because I've said in the past, and I'll say it again, mental health, public safety first, mental health in our community, go back and forth. I'm a NAMI-trained crisis intervention partner, okay? In the police department, I was also a CPI, Crisis Prevention Institute trained person. And all those things come because I was a crisis intervention team leader. I know the problems are there. I know we're suffering as a community. But because I have that experience, I am better suited to address those issues foundationally so that we can move forward. Please vote for me.
Alderman Perez, thank you, sir. Mayor Corey Mason, you have 4 minutes, sir, for your closing statement.
Thank you, and I want to thank Milton Doherty for moderating this evening, and I want to thank my opponent for agreeing to be part of this. Agreeing to be part of this debate tonight. I think we saw tonight some real distinctions. Look, I've been blessed to be part of a family that has been in Racine for 6 generations. Actually, 3 of those generations are here tonight. And we are also blessed that in our family, every generation has done a little bit better than the one before. And that is really the hope of the American dream. And really the work as mayor is making sure that our kids have the same opportunities, if not better, than the ones that came before. And so that is the work that we have begun to do and will continue to do. It is hard work. There is almost nothing we do that has a simple solution to it. It takes the hard work of investing in safe and healthy communities. So that means making sure at every opportunity, if there's additional resources that you can bring to the police department to keep us safe, you not only talk about them, you vote in favor of them. That means that if you need more resources because the state has a huge surplus, the biggest in history, and hasn't given communities what they need to fund police and fire, you go to the governor and do everything you can to get him to bring resources back here. And the governor has now proposed bringing $12 additional million a year so that we can pay for police and fire and critical local services. But it also means investing in safe and healthy neighborhoods and our neighbors, and friends that we want to succeed. It means building up a strong middle class. It means no longer having a community that is the biggest in the Midwest without a health clinic, so that people who don't have health insurance can get medical care, can get mental health care, can get the dental care that they need. It means partnering with the public schools, and when they have real items in front of them, they have the opportunity to succeed. Now, I think tonight has been a great demonstration about how it is that we are different, not only in terms of what you might talk about style, but it's not as though we have similar views on things. I'm a progressive person who has continued to believe in investing in the middle class and the programs that help people succeed. I'm somebody who is pro-choice, who believes that people should have the opportunity to make their own medical decisions. I'm somebody who believes that the hard work of doing the work to protect the environment requires real actions to get it done. I'm someone who believes that in this community, we are best suited to move forward if we invest in our people and trust them to get the resources they need to thrive and be in the middle class. But that all happens in collaboration with nonprofits, with the county, with the school district, with the council, to make sure that that can move forward. All of this work, it's important work, it's hard work. But I will tell you, I am somebody who has not only talked about these things, but I have taken concrete actions to make sure that we have safe and healthy communities where we have the resources that we need, where our neighbors and friends can achieve a middle-class lifestyle. And that is important work, and it is hard work. And if we are committed to doing that work, and if we are committed to making sure that the work of this community reflects the diversity of the community that makes it one of the best things about our community, we have to invest in those resources. These are not what I would call frivolous programs. These are critical to doing the work of making sure that we have safe and healthy neighborhoods. It means doing an all of the above strategy to make sure that we not only say the things that are important, but we vote in favor of them when we have the chances to bring resources here. Look, we've accomplished some amazing things. Lowest tax rate in 10 years, lowest unemployment in a generation, more economic development than we've seen in the last 5 years than we've seen in the last 20. But we've only just begun. We've made real progress, but we've only just begun to improve our community in a way where everyone can thrive regardless of their background. And with your support and your vote, I would be honored to continue on as your mayor for another 4 years so that we can build a stronger Racine. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, let me apologize to you, the audience, and these two excellent candidates for not getting the correct order for the rebuttal. Sometimes things don't happen as planned, but we have to shift on the fly. But we got there. I want to thank these two excellent candidates for answering the questions tonight. And as Eblis would say, you've been a beautiful audience. Give yourselves a hand, ladies and gentlemen. How about these two excellent candidates? Let's give them an excellent round of applause. I want to thank the organizations that invited me tonight and putting together these excellent questions. We got through all of them except I think there were a total of 3. Ladies and gentlemen of the city of Racine, you have a tough decision to make. You've been given some clear-cut information tonight. These gentlemen answered the questions. Go to the polls and vote, vote, vote. Doesn't matter who you vote for. Do your civic duty. Thank you so much and have a good night.
Doctor, thank you so much. I appreciate you.